Well, folks, Stranger Things. We've talked about some different things. I'll put the links in there. I brought in this guy, Daryl the Derelict, my brother. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. We'll talk about Stranger Things.
Thank you for having me.
Season 4, the redemption is complete. Like, if people, I think, after season 3, because season 3 was kind of a dip, it was at least lesser, or about the same as season 2, but there definitely was a fall off, and people were like, oh, I don't know. I think that once episode 1, once you got through that, you knew, oh, you were in for a ride. It was going to be dark. It was going to be edgy. And it just delivers. I mean, you will go through my complaints or my issues with it as a whole, but Daryl, thanks for doing this and hanging out with me, talking about Stranger Things, brother.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's I enjoy this stuff. I really do.
How many times have you watched season 4?
3 times complete.
3 times. Okay, good. Yeah, I've watched it twice, completely straight through, and then I've watched pieces of it a third time. Right, so it's obviously the finale and the scene we'll talk about with Eddie. If you don't want spoilers on season 4, I totally get it, because it is by far the most important elements to move forward to the next season, the final season. So if you don't want spoilers, this will not be a good video for you to watch, because I don't want to hold back. I want to kind of dive into why we like the show. So, because we leave off and you're kind of like, what are they going to do again? Another creature, another thing? Like, you're just sort of like, whatever. And the season starts where everybody's all spread out. And I'll get to my issue with them all being spread out, but I was kind of like, okay. But, man, they don't waste any time of delivering, getting your attention in episode 1 of season 4, right?
No, yeah. They no time at all, and they hook you in.
Yeah. So, there's so many great elements in the show because they try to find a way to weave everything right back to season 1. And the question to put in the back of your mind, which you don't have to answer right now, is to think about, because I want to answer it at the end, is, do you really think this was planned, or do you think that somehow, lightning in a bottle, they just connected enough dots to make it work? So keep that in the back of your mind, folks. Episode 1 just kind of, like I said, you got everybody kind of spread out. Certain characters never come back until the end, which is probably one of my negatives, but not the biggest thing in the world. Lucas's sister is going to be, more significant in this season. You have more of this introduction of this great character, Eddie, in the D&D club, the Hellfire Club. Did that take you back to D&D days, brother?
Oh yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
wasn't a D&D kid, so I was living vicariously through people I knew who were really into that. I was like, oh yeah, that must have been what it was like. So
I wasn't into it as much as, like that level, but we would get together. We wouldn't have a table or board or nothing like that. We would have like graph paper. We'd draw our maps and stuff like that. But yeah, it took me back, especially with Eddie, because I knew a guy just like him in high school.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I knew Eddie's. Yeah, I knew Eddie's. I mean, different, the look of Eddie. Then there's like burnout Eddies. There was gaming Eddies. And then there was just sort of like lazy Eddies. Mm-hmm. So most of us knew literally 3 or 4 versions of an Eddie. I mean, I kid you not, Eddie is so well done. He is sort of like an icon of so many people. Right? Because I mean, am I hitting that right? Yeah. I mean, there's really there's Burnout Eddie, Lazy Eddie, there's D&D Eddie, Metal. I mean, there's so many pieces. He hits so many different classes of that 80s stereotype. Oh yeah,
he does it beautifully. Mm-hmm. I mean, you are completely convinced that he is from the 80s.
Yeah. Were you aware of the mullet as well?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had my phase. Yeah. Okay, so season 1 doesn't waste any time. The death of Chrissy in the end of episode 1 could be its own video. I mean, it is so shockingly almost. I thought of like Exorcist. I thought of like a Hellraiser. I thought of things of like I can't believe it's going to go this hardcore. Wow. What happens next? I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah.
Now that you've watched it at least 3 times, is it still holding up for you in that way?
Oh yeah. It is brutal. And you just can't not watch it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just sucks you in and you're glued.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I consider the pilot to be one of the best episodes of television. I mean, if you go back and watch the pilot episode, season 1, episode 1, the multiple story arcs and how well every story arc is handled is so beautifully done. If this episode 1 was a little bit faster paced, I'd almost put it on that level, mostly because of the climax and stuff. It just literally gets you and just grabs you, and you almost can't help but hit play next episode. It's so well done.
Oh yeah, because you got to know what happens.
Yeah, and it's so hardcore. It's just so hardcore. So, this season really dives into I want to say rewriting, but elaborating on the history of the lab, experimentation with Brenner, and who is behind everything, basically. Right? Is that the best way to summarize all this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not going to pretend to be like the expert or have like given Stranger Things a whole lot of deep thought, but I'm still sort of torn on like how much of this was planned, not planned. They fell backwards into. It's so well done. The fact that you could come up with this idea of these flashbacks to the experimentation, having 11 trying to figure things out, but more importantly, the events in real time of Hawkins and how that ties to the origins of all of this. And the rise of Vecna, which I love the fact that they name drop stuff, but then they don't really spoon feed you. They just kind of let it hang there for a minute, right?
Oh yeah. They know how to do it well. They know how to do a tease.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to look at it. So let's see. So, all right, let me get to a negative. A negative for me would be it took too long to get the band back together.
Yes.
So, I had to have, several episodes, just kind of plod along. Like I had to have just like plod along. And I felt like I just had a lot of wasted chatty chat, talky talk. And that's beneath Stranger Things. They're better than that. But that doesn't drag the score down much. I'm talking about now it's what, not a 4.5, it's a 5. I mean, instead of being a 4.5, it's a 4. Like it's such a little difference of a problem. It's like, that's really it. The pacing and but I get a but because my show, I get a but. They at least move the characters along. So even though we do spend some chatty chat, talky talk, it's not like it was for nothing. It's not like a Marvel show where it's like, I feel like I get stuck into these 15 minutes of chatty chat, talky talk. It doesn't even matter. At least with the show, it matters. Things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Besides Eddie, is Argyle the next best new character?
Argyle had to grow on me.
Okay.
Because I knew guys like him too.
Like I say, you had to know at least one Argyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Stoner worked at the pizza joint. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had at least one, and probably had two. You probably had, the one that had the job, and the one that's just like the guy. He's Argyle, but he's also Argyle and like the stoner guy in Dazed and Confused. Like there's that one. Like there's two. There's one that had a job, one didn't have a job. Those are the two. There's two usually. Yeah. Two extreme stoner guys. Yeah. So okay. All right. I liked Argyle. Argyle provided me enough comic relief to decompress the room without it becoming like cheeky. This season never bothered being cheeky or goofy or silly, and easily could have been at times, and it didn't. I thought that was really, really a credit. Talk to me about Vecna, though, because Vecna is... I don't even know how to get my head around this situation.
Vecna is such a complex character before it's revealed, what he actually is at the end. But he was just so well done it reminded me of Jaws,
Okay.
where you didn't see the creature, you just saw the camera movement and you had the music. That's what it reminded me of. The way they did Vecna is the way Spielberg did Jaws, in that fashion. I mean,
Okay.
Not saying that they're Spielberg, but man, they hit it. They really hit it.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of the horror movie tropes. This hit that nail on the head. Hellraiser is very similar. Like we get little doses of Pinhead and the Cenobites, but it's not till the very end do you really get them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get a little bit with Freddy, even though that kind of at times isn't done well. But you don't quite know everything. You kind of know. Vecna fits into that same role too. But then I think what you're saying is true. Then I think it's even more because he actually is almost like he's behind everything, but then there's also more to the story. And I think that's what it does. Like you get that this thing's out there. Oh, it's Vecna. Okay, what is Vecna? Who is Vecna? What's his powers and all that? And that's where you have like the Nancy investigation and all the lights and all that kind of stuff playing out. How they get through the doorway and all that. And then you have the 11 and Dr. Brenner mystery that's unraveling. And it's like, okay, by the way, here we've told you everything. And by the way, we have more information for you. And by the way, what you think you know about the murder massacre at the lab, oh, there's more to that story. You're like, holy crap, this show is like, hold my beer, hold my beer, hold my beer.
Exactly. Yeah, one right after the other, too.
Oh,
Man, yeah, they hit it out of the park.
Is it better than season 1?
That's tough because after you watch season 4, you go back and watch season 1, you see things then. You see it differently and you see the connections and you're like, holy boop. And yeah, I've done that. And the first visualization of the Demogorgon on the road when Will's driving home in season 1 or riding home, right before he's kidnapped, you pause it right when it shows it. And then you look at Vecna from season 4, and it doesn't look like the no-face Demogorgon. It looks like Vecna.
Yeah. No,
I did that, and I'm like, holy man. I called my wife in there and said, no, look at this. Look at this.
I know. Yeah, because so that's the trick question, right? So does that mean season 4 is so much better and it elevates season 1, or was it always planned? That's the trick question is how much was planned or how much did they just go back and it was like lightning in a bottle, man. They just figured out how to solve this puzzle and make it work so well. Because when you go back, and again, I think without season 4, you look at, all right, well, season 1's like a 4. And then I would say season 2 is a pretty big step down. It's like 2.5 stars, and season 3 is like a 2-star. Then when you watch season 4, everything gets elevated because everything starts threading together, tying together. You understand Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, and everything becomes so much more complicated and nuanced and interesting. I just couldn't believe it. I just was so blown away. So
yeah, I'm still blown away every time I watch it. It's just so well. It doesn't make it better than season 1, but it's right up there with it.
Okay. So I guess kind of like 2 elements in season 4 that kind of make it even more special. Again, making my case because I'm having a hard time not saying season 4 is better than season 1 because we also have maybe season 1 did this, but not on this level. We not only had the resurgence of Kate Bush music because of Max's story arc, but also the famous Eddie sequence in Master of Puppets. How does the season 4 not get bonus points? Because they basically introduced a whole generation of people to these 2 artists and this music, and they trended for like 3 weeks because of that. Like because it's become like a musical phenomenon also.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get the Kate Bush thing because that song wasn't popular here. I'd never heard of it before until I watched season 4, and I was like,
sure,
okay, well, that's all right. It's her thing. Maybe girls listen to it, and that's why I didn't ever hear it. But they never played it on any radio station I listened to.
Yeah, I know. It would have been an alternative rock type thing back in the day, which was pretty rare. Like it was more like music like that was more like you just picked it up as you went along, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the Eddie stuff, Master of Puppets, it's truly gold.
Absolutely.
One of the best moments of television, one of the best episodes. Just I can't tell you, man, how many times I've listened to Master of Puppets in July because of that sequence and that song. I did a face swap with Mexican Iron Man and Loki. I mean, I couldn't believe how much fun this was. It made me so happy.
Yes. Yeah. And in the midst of all this danger and, fear of death coming around everything, there's this moment, this bright spot of pure joy.
True. And I'm going to cling to the hope. Hashtag Eddie lives. Just so you know, anybody knows out there. I don't know how. It doesn't make any sense if he were to. However,
I have a theory about that.
Okay. All right. Well, last thoughts on season 4, because I mean we could be down this rabbit hole. We could do all sorts of crazy topics and that kind of thing. And I think you should do some on your channel too, so folks go over there and check it out, because you were really. We chit chatted about it briefly, and you were like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm totally down this rabbit hole with Stranger Things." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I'm sort of like on the edge of it just now, like because now it's like I have time to kind of like dabble more, like really kind of get into it more. Whereas before it was more like something to binge and get through. Now I feel like I have time to kind of spin my wheels a little bit more on this show.
Yeah, we actually did a stream on Stranger Things several months ago. So much, I mean, I loved it so much that I made an actual intro for Stranger Things
Cool.
that I've only used once. But I hope to use it again because, my biggest problem with season 4 was 2 things. And that's what brings it down and not better than season 1. Joyce completely flip-flopped from the way she was in the previous 3 seasons. She was all about protecting the kids and knowing what the kids were doing. This season, she was just free willy to just leave them with Jonathan. And say, I got to go take care of some stuff. You handle it. Okay. And even though the kids were going through some stuff. And another, it's not very popular opinion, but as a character, 11 has grown physically, but emotionally, not much. Because with her, her fight with her schoolmate or whatever, she immediately tries to use her powers. And if she had her powers, she may have killed that girl because she was so enraged by being picked on all the time. And, it should have humbled her, but it didn't, because she ends up bashing her in the face with a skate.
That's true. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think the biggest hindrance for me in all of Stranger Things is the 11's the filler episode in season 2, I believe, right? Where she just punks out and leaves, tracks down her sister, which is number 8. We have a quick clip of them, and then we have that episode, and then nothing ever is relevant again. And you're waiting for her to be relevant as you're watching season 3 and then into season 4, and you're like, well, are we ever going to do anything with it? I think you're right with 11, but I also don't know. I want to cut 11 some slack because I don't know who she'd be learning to grow from, because she was so sheltered. She almost has to go through these learning curves because she hasn't have any, like, there's not really been parenting. There's not been any mentors. She hasn't really had schooling proper. Just everything is such a mess. So it's one of those things where you say it and it jumps out at me, but I'm also torn because I'm like, yeah, but she's kind of like, almost like a kindergartner, even though she's not, because she's smart. But it's like, she's got the emotions of just a juvenile emotion.
But she had been living with Joyce for 8 months.
True.
And there was 0 growth. And it's like, okay, Joyce was such a great mother. She went to all these lengths to save her son. And now it's just like, I don't know. I just can't. I can't get by that.
Do you think they would push back to say that's why she 11 kept everything a secret? Like only Will was picking up on all of that. no one else really knew how bad things were. That would be their pushback, I assume.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, she kept.
Yeah,
so
because
Joyce wouldn't have had an opportunity to intervene because she didn't really know how bad things were. So yeah.
Yeah, and that is typical 80s stuff. We didn't tell our parents what we were going through.
Yeah, latchkey
because
kids.
half the time they just tell us to suck it up, fight back, or just shut up.
Yeah, use a skate and hit them in the face. Gotcha. Any last thoughts on season 4?
I'd give it a solid, strong 4.
Yeah, very, very strong. Very, very strong show. Trust me, guys. If you've never gotten through it, once you get there, you're gonna have payoffs. It makes you start thinking about what they can do next, how this is all going to work. It makes you go back and start questioning season 1 through 3 again, that kind of thing. I'd love to hear what you guys in comments have to say about all this. Palate cleanser from me, brother. I tell you what, I loved rewatching this. It made my day.
Absolutely. And I mean, even though I do have a few issues with it, I'll go back and watch every bit of it again.
Yeah, agreed. All right, guys, listen, check out that description. Make sure you're connected to this guy. Watch out his content. If I can find that link, I'll track it down and get Daryl's link in there, for his Stranger Things thing he's talking about. So thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pops.
My favorite quality about Pops is that he's incredibly honest. At least you always know where you stand with Pops. So I like that about him. He's not passive aggressive. He's not sneaky that way. He'll give it to you straight down both barrels.